Now that we looked at how easy putting in functions is in Excel, and we've looked at how the sum function works, let's start exploring some of the other most commonly used functions in Excel. Specifically the average function, minimum, maximum, and some of the count functions as well. We're going to start with average first, and the average function is great for if you want to average out maybe the number of sales, the products that you're selling, the average income that people are making, whatever it might be. Excel built in this function as a shortcut, so you don't have to sit there and click on every single value yourself. We're going to start in here in C12 in my worksheet, and I'm going to specifically use the average function to get the average amount of sales for each quarter, so I can see if people are above the average or under the average. So in C12, I'm going to start off with the equal sign just like we have with the other functions, and the name of this function happens to be average. So I'll type in equals average, open the parentheses, and again, you can put this in however you feel comfortable inserting functions, since you know the different ways now. So I'm going to go and actually use the mouse in this case, and I'll click on C5, I'll drag down to C9, and you'll notice it puts that in there for me, so all I've got to do is hit enter, and I get 7979. Great, now that I have it done once, guess what we're doing? I'm going to click and drag this all the way over to G12 and use my autofill and have it fill it in there for me. Okay, great. Let's go down to C13 and we'll talk about the minimum function next. And the minimum function's name happens to be min. Now, the minimum function returns the lowest value in a selected range of values. So I'm going to use this to find out the worst performer in each of my 4 quarters. So let's see who it's going to be here. I'm going to type in equals min, I'll open my parentheses. The same way like I did with average, I'll click on C5, drag down to C9, and hit enter. So this happens to be poor Katie Sumter. She's the lowest selling employee for quarter 1. I'll click on C13, I'll use my autofill handle to go all the way across to G13 and release. And let's see who was the lowest total overall seller, and happens to be, well, poor Katie again. Let's go down to C14, and I'm going to do the maximum function next. The name of this function in Excel is max, so I'll do an equals max, open my parentheses, the same steps again, C5 to C9, I'll hit enter, and then I'll use my autofill to drag it over to the right. And that returns the highest value out of a selected range of values. Okay, so the last two we're going to look at are some of the count functions that are available to us, and there's a couple different variations, but for the most part it's going to return a value that is giving you the total either number of values or the total number of values that include letters, empty cells, right? There's a lot of different variations like I said, but let's look at 2 specifically here. The first one, we're going to look at a count function that will return the number of cells that contain numbers in them. So what I mean by that is I'm going to maybe take a range, this range here from C5 to F9, and I just want it to simply tell us, well, how many sales figures are encompassed in this range. So I'll go down to C16, I'm going to type in equals count, open my parentheses, I'll put in the range from C5 over to F9, I'll hit enter, and it returns 20. And that's what I want actually, because it gives me what's Katie down to Ernest, which is 5, and then it gives me the 4 quarters across, so 5 by 4 is 20. Count only returns cells that have a numerical value inside the cell. So even if I go in here and I edit my function to include, let's say, C4 to F9, and that way it includes the headers up here, and I hit enter, it's still going to give me 20 because these 4 cells up here, quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, they don't have any, they're not numerical cells, they don't have any numerical values in there, so it won't include those in the count function. Okay, let's go down now to C17, and I'll finish up with the other count function. And this is great if you want to just count the cells that have characters in them, so alpha characters, so no numerical characters. So maybe I just want to count up the total number of employees I have in my office, or the total amount of products I'm selling. Whatever the case is, you can use the count A function to return that value. So I'm going to do an equals count A, open up my parentheses, I'm going to go from A5 down to A9, I'll hit enter, and that returns 5. So in this case, it really wasn't that tough to count how many employees I have at my company here, but just imagine you have rows and rows and rows and rows of all these people or products, and you want to quickly return the total amount. Well, Count A will do that nicely for you.